Your flip-flops are very loud.
Alright, I'm in bed. I'm comfy.
Hello and welcome to Allie in Sweatpants. My name is Allie and I am wearing sweat shorts because it's summer and it's hot. Oops. Gosh, I almost turned on my TV. Okay, so I typically have a knitting podcast, as many of you know. However, I thought I would try something different today. I have asked in a few videos if anyone would be interested to see what I have been reading lately, and a few people said yes. So I thought I would do like my first half of the year wrap-up video. I have a very on and off relationship with reading. I never read as a kid. I did not enjoy it, and then I read Coraline by Neil Gaiman and I loved it, and I totally understood why people liked to read, but I was very, very, very picky with my books. And then when I was like 20, I went through a year of reading. I probably read like 12 books that year, which was like huge for me. That was probably like double what I had read before. And then I didn't read for years. And then at the start or at the end of last year, like November, I wanted to change my pre-bed habit of scrolling on my phone for hours to reading. And so I just started and I haven't looked back since. So I'm going to talk about the books that I have read. I feel like this looks very not impressive because it's so far back. It looks like a little bitty tiny stack, but I have read 22 books so far this year, which for me is huge. So I just thought I would go through and talk about the books that I've read and the ratings that I've given them, and we would go from there. I know booktubers and people in that realm are so good at giving like little synopsis of the books. I will try my best. Like I said, I've never done this before, so let's get into it. I'm gonna pull up my Goodreads. So the first book that I read this year was the second book in a duology, and I did not order this duology. It just showed up via Amazon. I looked through my history, didn't order it. Parents didn't order it. Boyfriend's parents didn't order it. Cousin didn't. Like, I don't know how I got these. They just showed up on my door, and we were going on a New Year's vacation, and I was like, I'll grab one. It was my first Colleen Hoover. I don't even remember what the first one is called, but this is the second one. It was the first book I read of the series. Basically, it's this girl who has a bad breakup with her boyfriend and moves into this apartment with this strange man who's in the same apartment complex as she is. And their relationship kind of unfolds from there. I don't think I would recommend this series, so we're not really starting off with a bang here. But it was my first Colleen Hoover, and I did devour the first one. This one, not so much. I gave it a 2.75. I said, all I really enjoyed about this book was Maggie's storyline. Wish it focused more on her. The rest was pretty to me. The friendship and ending felt unrealistic, but that's okay. Moving on. The next book that I read this year is huge. It's a huge book series in the sense of popularity. It's been out for a while. I've been hearing about it for at least 8 years on BookTube, the people that I follow. And I was like, fantasy is not my thing. Like, I don't think I will like fantasy. But it was just like, I kept hearing. And finally, I was like, I'm doing it. And I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This was part of a book club that I created for my cousin and I for this year. For Christmas, I gifted her 6 books that I wrapped, and I wrote little clues about what they were. And so every 2 months, she's been picking our new book club book, and this was the first one that she picked, and neither her nor I are really fantasy readers. but I am hooked. This is sold as like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I would say for the first half of the book, it kind of is. And then the second half of the book is when shit hits the fan and it gets so good. And I wish the second half of the book had been double the length that it was, because as soon as I hit, and I feel like anyone who has read this knows the part that I'm talking about, as soon as I hit that part in the middle where things started really happening, I was like, I get it. I get it. I get it. So, I rated this a 3.75/4. I wrote, the ending felt a bit rushed to me, as did their chemistry. There. If you know, you know. I feel like maybe the book could have been a bit longer to flush those parts out. Being my first fantasy book, I had to get used to the intense life and death aspect of it. But wow, I can't wait to continue the series. Devoured it from chapter 10 on. There you go. If you haven't, because you're sick of hearing people talk about it and fantasy's not your thing, romantasy, fantasy, romance, fairy smut. And, okay, I just have to say this. I was texting my friend who ended up reading it at the same time. And I was like, there's this particular character who becomes a bigger character later on in the series. But he's kind of a bad guy in this. Again, if you've read it, you know. And he had kind of a moment at the end of the book. And I remember telling her, I was like, I think people just really don't understand this character because he's like kind of the bad guy and he's misunderstood, and like I kind of think he should be the love interest, but like I know that's not how it's gonna go, because like he's misunderstood. Like he's this little side character. I'm embarrassed. The next book that I read is a Little Noella, part of the Colleen Hoover series that I was talking about now. I'm embarrassed to even show it because it was not good. It's the novella. I don't even want to talk about it. I wouldn't really recommend it. I would say if you know, you know. I gave it a 2. 2-star. The next book that I read is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is like a YA mystery. And before I started having panic attacks and my anxiety was just at a normal level, I was a psychological thriller mystery girly. Like, I was one of those annoying people who was into true crime before it was cool to be into true crime. Like, I'm one of them, you know what I mean? Things have changed a little bit. However, this very popular series. Guys, no. Very popular series. I think there's 3. I've heard a lot of people on BookTube talk about this. I've heard a lot of 5 stars. It was not a 5-star for me. So basically the premise of this is there was a murder in a small town, and the main character of this story is kind of investigating it for her senior project. So it's like sort of a mixed media style book. Like you have her sort of interview style pages and whatnot, and there are like blog post pages, and in theory, very fun, very cool. I just think maybe I'm a little too old for it. So I gave it 3 stars. And I said, it was fine, it was good. I know it's YA, and sadly I think it really was just a bit too young for me. I don't know if I liked the mixed media style. And I guessed half of the ending by page 40 or so, which was a bit disappointing. But like, you can't win them all, you know? I think I completely understand why people really love this series, and I think if I had read this in middle school, it would have been a 5-star. Blown my mind. So good. And if this was turned into a movie or a show, I'd watch the heck out of it. By the way, before the new year, I read 5 Survive, and I gave that a 5-star. Not part of this video because I read it last year, but okay, the next book that I read is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is apparently the second book in this world. The first one I think is When in Rome. And then there's this one. I haven't read When in Rome, and I don't think I will because it's like pop star comes to small town, and that's not really my thing. But this is the main boy character of the first book. This is his sister. And this is the bodyguard of the pop star from the first book. And so basically, she is like just tragic at dating. She has a horrible time dating, bad luck, but she's like sunshine. She's like super sweet, very golden retriever for a girl. And he is like a big tough bodyguard. And so he agrees to give her like dating lessons, like tips and tricks. And then it's obviously a romance. So I really liked this one. I remember really liking it. I give it 4.25. Let's see. It was nothing crazy, but wow, I enjoyed it so much. I love Annie. I love the setting. I love the tension. I love the ending. It really brought some emotions out. First two sentences in chapter 23 are the first to ever make me cry from a book. Miss my grandma. Let's see what those. It's not my day to visit my grandma, but I'm going anyway. Logically, I know that she's not going to have any of the answers that I need, but I'm going anyway in some misplaced hope that she'll be having the most amazing day she's had in months, and she'll be my grandma again tonight, full of wisdom and grace, and can tell me exactly what to do. It just hit home. So I really liked this one. It's just a cute, fluffy, good time book. The next book that I read, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Oops. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And this is probably the biggest book I had ever read at the time. It's chunker. And I devoured it. I loved it. I gave it a 4.5. I can't really talk about what this one is about without giving away things from the first one. So if you haven't read the first one, it's kind of hard, but I gave it a 4.5. I said, just wow. Blushing, gasping, pining, raging, worrying, cheering, all of it. So, so good. Can't even process it all. Enough said. So the next book I read, I borrowed the Kindle version from my library through the Libby app, and it was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, which is another mystery thriller. The premise of it is like this couple wins a weekend away at like a chapel in Scotland. But the husband has facial blindness, so he can't recognize anyone's face. And it, I believe if I remember correctly, is a dual perspective. It's either a dual perspective or a dual timeline. I don't know. I read it so fast. And this was the first mystery thriller where I literally was taking like notes and making guesses from basically the first chapter. And I had such a good time. I wrote, wow, love that I read this while it was raining when it's almost February and it's a leap year. All those things have to do with the story. Couldn't have planned the timing better if I'd tried. This really got me. I devoured it. It had me reading all day and deaf a bit spooked. I thought I had it all figured out, but I didn't guess a single thing. Did the ending fall a bit flat for me? Yeah, a bit, but I had a great time nonetheless. So I definitely recommend, and I have a feeling I'll be reading a lot of Alice Feeney. So the next book that I read was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I enjoyed the first book that I read so much that I went on to the next one. So the premise of this one is like this family is called to an island to celebrate their grandmother's 80th birthday. And within the first night, she ends up dead. So it's basically them trying to figure out what happened to grandma. And I gave it 4 stars. I said I did end up guessing 2 out of 3 of the plot twists, but I really enjoyed it. It felt like it paid a lot of homage to Rock, Paper, Scissors, which was kind of fun. Love that I accidentally read it during a rainstorm. Because again, it's like they're stuck on the island because it's raining so hard that they can't get off. So that one was a lot of fun. And then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This one, romance heavy. Romance heavy. This one, kind of like politics, friendship, war heavy. As I remember. It was so good. I gave this one a 4.75. And I said, it's not a 5-star only because of the amount of ... and ... and stuttering really pulled me out of the story and got annoying. But wow. The found family in this had my heart singing and aching. The last 200 pages were a roller coaster that I was not prepared for, but loved. I do remember, it's not in any of the other books, to my memory. In this book in particular, there was lots of ... and like ... and stuttering in the dialogue. Sarah, why? Why did we throw that in here? There was so much. I'm literally flipping through ... stutter ... ... stutter ... Like, it would have been a 5 without that because it completely took me out. But I love it nonetheless. Fluff just attacked me. The next book I read was the Little Noella in the series, A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. I gave it 3.25 because it's just kind of like a cozy holiday novella in between the stories. I said, just a cozy good time, TBH. Need more of Asriel, need more of more. Wouldn't mind more of Feyre and Rhys, TBH. Ready for more, LOL. So yeah, I read that. It was good. It's like, I mean, it's like a novella, so it's obviously nothing crazy. And then, okay, the next book that I read was the next book in the book club that I was doing with my cousin. This is the next one that she picked. And she almost didn't pick this because summer was, it was like spring. And I wrote like island on one of the clues. And she was like, I don't want to read about people having a good time at the beach when I don't get to be at the beach. And I was like, not that kind of island. So the next thing I read was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is my second Agatha Christie book. The first one that I read last year, and it felt like an old school book. This one was crazy. I don't know why I always expect old school books to not be as hardcore as current books, but she was dark. So this is basically 10 strangers are called together on an island, and all of them are lured there on different pretenses, and they're not really sure why. And then they all start to die, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on. So I gave this one a 3.75. I said, I don't know. Didn't like the ending, and I know the subject matter is dark, but dang, this was darker than I was expecting from our girl Aggie. So it was good. Upon reflecting, it was good. It has insane reviews, and it's like a cult classic, and I get why. I completely understand why. I just think it didn't hit the mark for me, and I will say Daisy Darker is kind of a retelling of this, so keep that in mind. But it was good. I would recommend it, of course. The next book that I read was through my library again, and it was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Now, I don't know how I feel about Colleen Hoover. All I will say is the books are easy to read and quick, and I like that sometimes. But this one I had seen a few booktubers that I like give like basically 5 stars to, so I thought I would try it. The premise of this one is like brother's best friend type of like forbidden friends with benefits thing. It's this girl who like needs to move in with her brother, but finds out like the neighbor across the street or across the apartment complex is like his best friend, and they have interest in each other, and like, I don't know, that whole thing. I gave it a 3.75, and all I said was, ouch, broken heart, and then full heart emoji. Because that's kind of just how it left me. So the next book that I read is called Spring on the Little Cornish Isles, The Flower Farm by Philippa Ashley. And this is the second in kind of a interconnected standalone trilogy. I have not read the first one because it was Christmas themed. So I started with this one because it was spring when I started reading it. And I have the summer one, and then I'll probably read the Christmas one around Christmas. So this is basically, this girl is running away from her life, and she goes to these small islands off of the Cornish coast and starts working at a flower farm. And she doesn't know anything about flower farming, but she gets hired, and she has this like, I don't even know how to describe it, with her boss. The guy in it, her boss, they have like a flirty, fighting relationship. And then it's just so nice. It's like she becomes part of a community, and it's very cozy, and it made me really crave community. So I gave it 4 stars. And I said, honestly, just a good, fun, cozy time. Reignited my desire to work a summer on an island. LOL. Slow burn. But I was here for every second of this one. So I really, really liked this one. It was very just comforting and cozy. The next book that I read, because again, I saw it recommended by a few different YouTubers, is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. This is just like a trashy, smutty romance book. It's like this girl who used to be on OnlyFans, becomes a nanny for this guy that she finds out was like her biggest OnlyFans supporter. So it's like forced proximity. I don't know, is nanny a trope? Very quick, very easy to read. I gave it a 4.5. I said, ate it up, guilty pleasure. Enough said. If you're interested, go ahead and look it up. Next I read, also through my library, Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. I don't know if I'd heard someone talk about this, or if I'd heard someone talk about Tessa Bailey, or I was recommended it through my library app. I'm not sure exactly how I got on here, but it's part 1 of I don't know how many books are in it. But basically it's this woman who is a gardener, and she's very like scatterbrained, never shows up anywhere on time, kind of stressful person to work with, it sounds like, to be honest, in a very small town. And then there's this guy who moves back into town, and he's the son of like the wealthiest vineyard owners in the area or whatever. And so she starts doing gardening for his parents, and you know, goes from there. I gave it a 3.5. I said I didn't find their chemistry the most convincing, but I still had a very good time. Loved that they had their individual flaws that the other never tried to change. The growth happened from their own desire to. So, I don't know. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst for sure. Next, I read A Court of Silver Flames. Now this, to this date, is the biggest book I've ever read. She's huge. This is the currently last book in the Court of Thorns and Rose series. However, I have seen that she is writing another one. If we don't get a book about Azriel, I will lose my mind. I want to know about him, and I want a book about Mor. I'll read a book about Amren. Give them all. Give them all. Give them all. All of them. I need it. I need to know more. And you know what? Controversial opinion, but I'd read a book about Tam Tam. I agree. I don't think he's a good guy. I don't think he handled it well, but I think he's a little misunderstood. Everyone's flawed. People handle things differently. If he got his little anger issues under control, I'm just saying. I think people are a little bit harsh on Tam Tam. I'm not defending him or his actions. What he did was wrong. I will just say, I'd read his backstory, okay? Okay? So I read this. I gave it a 4.75. I said, I have no words and I have a million words. The character development in this is amazing. I could have read at least 200 more pages. Wow. If she doesn't add at least 5 more books to this series, I will be upset. I have not started Throne of Glass. I have the first one. I intend to start it. I'm just trying to get through some of my other books before I dive into a series that big. So, 4.75. Next, I read through my library, Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is like this couple every year goes on vacation with their group of friends to a beach house, and they have broken up. They have ended their engagement. They haven't told any of their friends yet. They're like, we'll do it after this vacation. Like, let's not ruin it because it's our last one, because their friend is having to sell, or their friend's dad is selling the house. And so it's just kind of that development. I gave it 4 stars. All I wrote was a quote saying, "Love you so much, kiddo," because, oh my God, now me getting emotional. My dad always says, "Kiddo, love you, kiddo." So it very much hit home. I thought it was good. I thought it was nice. The next book that I read is A Golden Cornish Summer by Philippa Ashley. Now, I have 4 books by Philippa Ashley. I have A Golden Cornish Summer. I have A Secret Cornish Summer. I have A Perfect Cornish Summer. Philippa, who's letting you do that? Who's letting you title your books like that? That's my only question. So, I don't know if this one's part of a little series or not. I don't think it is. I think this is just a standalone. And this is a girl. Okay, so the main character is kind of struggling in her life. So she comes home and she bumps into her first love, and they've had a falling out. We don't know why yet, but they've had a falling out. So it's kind of frosty. It's very awkward. And through the story, it kind of uncovers why she doesn't like being home anymore, why she moved away from home, why they had such a falling out. There's buried treasure in it. And yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I kind of slogged through it a little bit, but it was cozy. It was fun. I gave it 3 stars, and I said, I can't say that I got overly sucked into this book, but it was a good, cozy time all the same. So, next I read my next book club book with my cousin, and this is the last one we've read so far. She needs to pick a new one. And it was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is another one I've been hearing about for years. And even when I read the synopsis of it, I was like, I don't know, old Hollywood actress expose, like, okay. Like, all right. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it just sounded fine, like, whatever. But the hype around it, insane. By Taylor Jenkins Reid, by the way. And I have Daisy Jones and the Six, and my boyfriend's best friend worked on the show for Daisy Jones and the Six, so I was like, yeah, why not? I threw it in because I was like, it has so many crazy reviews. I know my cousin hasn't read it. Let's do it. I ended up giving this a 4.5. I wrote, I flew through this book. Truly felt like I couldn't put it down. The last 80 pages, Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. There were some tears. The writing style flowed so effortlessly for me. Note to self, don't read chapters before bed that you know are going to be sad. And then I put a quote. You don't have to make yourself okay for a good mom. A good mom will make herself okay for you. And I just thought that was very sweet. So, yes, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you haven't read it and the synopsis doesn't sound overly intriguing to you, I would just give it a go. It does give that old Hollywood feel, which is kind of fun. You know what? It kind of gave me Babylon vibes. And if you've seen that movie, it's very weird. But it did kind of give me those vibes. So, there you go. Next, I read through my library app, Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I've heard tons about this, again, on BookTube, so much. Cowboy romance. She had an accident where she was living, and so she's come home to her small town. Do you see a theme in books? It's fun. She's come home to her family ranch, brother's best friend. She's never gotten along with him. Suddenly, the little crush she had as a teenager is a bit more of an adult crush. He's big, he's smoldering, he's a cowboy. He's never liked her, she's always been annoying. But somehow now that she's older, she's suddenly attractive. Who would have thought? So it's like brother's best friend, forbidden romance, friends to benefits to he falls first type of thing. I gave it a 3.75. I said, reading my reviews out loud is humbling. I said, just a boot stomping good time. I feel like it was similar to The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. But instead of a nanny trope, it was brother's best friend. But it was a good time. And I have the next one saved on my Libby app. So I'm hoping to read that soon. But yeah, it was a fun like summer cowboy romance. The next book I read again on my Kindle was The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. Because I enjoyed The Nanny, I figured like, let's try another one. So this one. This one is a paranormal romance. I have never done that before, but I liked my romanticises, so I was like, why not? They're both werewolves in modern society, and in this story, humans and werewolves now live side by side, and it is okay and it is accepted. Fine. They're both doctors. Fine. He's grumpy, she's sunshine. Fine. No, I didn't. It starts as a fake dating. Fine. Not my favorite. Yeah, she needs a boyfriend so her grandma gets off her back. He needs a mate so that he doesn't get in trouble at work. It was the werewolf thing. It didn't work for me. I think it would have been a lot more effective for me sans werewolf, but that's just personal. I gave it a 2.75/3. I said, I just don't know if werewolves are for me. I honestly think I might have connected a bit more had they been human, LOL. And way too many mentions of, it's just biology, it's just hormones. Also, why are long chapters such a buzzkill for me? These were long chapters. I like me a nice 10-page chapter, you know what I mean? The book I'm reading right now, 30 to 40-page chapters. Stop doing that. So the final book that I have read, I started it in June, I actually finished it in July, so like first half of the year, tomato. But it was a book that my boyfriend got me for my birthday, and I had never seen anything about this book. We just went to Target and he picked it out for me. And it sounds very good. So it's called The House in the Pines by Ana Reyes. And the premise is like, when the main character is in high school, her best friend drops dead right in front of her after talking to the main character's then boyfriend. And the main character always had kind of a weird feeling that somehow her ex-boyfriend had caused it. And then suddenly she, 7 years later, sees a YouTube video of her ex-boyfriend talking to a woman in a diner, and the woman just drops dead, just like her best friend. So she's like, whoa, okay, now I need to prove he did something. So it sounds so good. However, there's just so much that didn't work for me. It's dual perspective, however, or it's dual timeline. However, the timelines are so jumpy and jarring, and it doesn't specify which one you're in, so you kind of have to figure it out as you're going. And there's like some weird cultural background thrown in here that doesn't tie into the story at all. So why it was added, I'm not really sure, to be honest. There were a few complete chapters that I skipped because I was just like, this isn't propelling the story at all. I don't know why it's in here. So I skipped it. And the main character, because of her trauma of watching her friend die, was prescribed medication that she then became reliant upon, and so now she's an unreliable narrator because of it. And I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that in this genre. Stop making the female main characters this, like, cracked out, unreliable character. You know, like, no. It also flared up my anxiety a little bit. I have a thing with feeling like I'm going crazy and hallucinating, and okay, she dealt with that too. So I gave it 2.75. However, upon further reflection, I might give it a 2 or a 2.5. Here's what I said. This feels like a harsh rating because it isn't a bad book. I don't think I was in the right headspace for a mystery thriller. I also didn't love the him storyline that it was all based around because it kind of felt like it was trying to make the story deeper than it really needed to be. It definitely had me feeling uneasy for most of it, and I didn't guess what was going on, but there were just some storylines thrown in that I didn't really care about. And the ending is literally like, well, here's how it's all happening, and she lived happily ever after. Like the quickest wrap-up I've read in a while. And I was going through the Goodreads reviews, and a lot of people felt the same way, and some of the reviews were so funny. It's a Reese Witherspoon's book club pick, and everyone was like, Reese, girl, did you read this? So apparently it was the author's debut novel, and it was her college thesis. Once I read that, I was like, it is giving college thesis. This makes sense now. So, again, it wasn't bad. I didn't guess what was happening and how it was happening until it was revealed to me. A lot of people in the comments had problems with what was revealed because it is kind of out there. That being said, like 6,000 people gave this 5 stars. So just because I didn't like it doesn't mean it's a bad book and everyone's gonna hate it. No. Just wasn't my thing. So those are all the books that I have read for the first half of this year. I have quite a big, I'll show you. I have quite a big physical TBR up there that I need to get to. And I will eventually, at some point. But I also have a lot saved on my Libby app. So, but I'm enjoying my reading. I am having a great time. And I'm loving reading kind of like seasonally. Like I was doing winter books, and then I was doing spring books. Now I have a ton of summer books to get through. And then I have some fall books ready to go. And then I have some Christmas books ready to go. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed. This was definitely different for me. Who knows if I'll do it again. If you liked it, I will. But if you hated it, then I hope you're not still watching, because why put yourself through that? So if you're reading something, I would love to know what you're reading. I would love to know what your favorite book of the year so far is. I would love to know what your favorite book of all time is. And I would love to know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on them. So I hope that you're well, and I will be back when I have more to talk about.